think we'll call the meeting. Call the meeting to order. So I'd like to call the meeting to order of the City of Monona Sustainability Committee, Thursday, November 11th, Veterans Day, 2021. Aren't you, Dan, aren't you a veteran?
I am.
That's right. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I think Elisa can see who's here. So I call for approval of the minutes from August 12th, 2021 and October 14th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I read them over earlier today. I'll move, or I'll second if Teresa wants to make the motion.
Okay, great. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any corrections, changes? Okay, that being the case, all those in favor say aye.
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 Great. Minutes carried. I don't see anybody here to make an appearance. So I'll go to unfinished business, which starting with the energy roadmap.
I can kick this one off we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, but I know not everybody could be there. So I attached a slightly revised version of the memo that I had made for the last meeting. I think it'll be great to hear everyone's thoughts on like what this energy roadmap can look like, what we want included. But I think from a staff perspective, I'm interested in hearing if there's any like data or analysis that it would be helpful to have on hand for this report so that I can work on those things or track down data that we might need. So that's, I think in the memo that I wrote, I was mostly trying to cover data that we already have, some of the commitments, like outlining some of the goals that we've set out, both in the like 25 by 25 goals and the 2019 clean energy resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And then just some other stuff that I thought might be useful. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about information that's in that memo, or if we just want to jump into discussion.
Does anybody have any questions about her memo? Really great work. This is to pull all that together. Alyssa, is a lot of work, so I really appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions about the report?
I was not a question, but just a comment. I was glad to see that Slipstream had already done a bunch of analysis for the district's energy footprint, which that gets you a long ways towards where you need to go, and they do really thorough work. So it might just be a matter of executing some of the stuff that Slipstream has identified in that project or implement.
Right. Is anybody else having a hard time hearing Ken?
I am.
Yeah. Is it your internet connection, Ken?
Yeah, it could be. Let me see if I can move to a different part of the house. I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
Sometimes killing video will help too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think that if I recall looking at the OEI report, I think that one of the things that frustrated some of us was that, it highlighted things like street lights as being a priority. But I don't know, it seemed like only part of the buildings were analyzed and didn't really give us a excuse me. It didn't give us a roadmap per se. And that I think our overall, I mean, at least I know my overall concern is even though Ken, I was saying that I think the slipstream report was really good in some respects in terms of sort of showing us where the low hanging fruit was. But it didn't necessarily tell us more than what that low hanging fruit was. And it only analyzed like a few of the buildings, and because we already have solar on top of our city facilities, even though it's not the most recent solar, and we've had some challenges with it, it just seemed like it didn't give us much of a roadmap in terms of making sure that some of those things, I don't know, it just seems like in order to go for other grants, we have to have some shovel-ready projects, if you will, or other.
Maybe what I'm wondering, are you thinking, what I'm thinking is, looking at this document now, I remember the first time I looked at it, and I remember being more impressed with it now than I was the first time. And I think it's because my expectations, the word roadmap threw me a little bit. I was I was inaccurately thinking roadmap meant, oh, they were going to show us a road forward. They were going to show us how to achieve our goals. And rather what they produced has value.
Right.
But it's just not what I thought it would be.
Right.
It seems like what they produced is sort of a picture of where we are now, which is great. You have to have that too.
Right.
But I do remember being disappointed initially, and I think it was because of my interpretation or my expectation of what the word roadmap was going to be when they delivered it. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, I would concur.
But it is valuable to know these things.
Sure.
Ken, in your experience, can you tell me or us why it is that you felt this slipstream document was so valuable? I mean, maybe it's enough.
Well,
maybe
a lot of places
maybe we
a lot of places don't even have that, right? Like,
Okay.
and as a newcomer to the committee and having not worked with the city at all, I really wasn't aware what kind of baseline data
Sure.
was already in our possession. So knowing that even exists is, gets you a fair ways downfield to where you want to go. It doesn't tell you how you're going to execute the projects, how you're going to prioritize them, or how you're going to finance them, which if you're going to make a comprehensive energy plan, you need all those other things, right? Because you can't do 20 construction projects all at the same time. So, and you have to figure out how you're going to fit them into your budget. But Slipstream wouldn't be able to tell you that. That's work that this committee and the city needs to do, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But they at least have information and data there on like each of the buildings and how much they're using. And, we can see how we compare to other municipalities. So we know if we're like, tremendously wasteful or if we're actually, hitting for average sort of thing. That it's the starting point that you need to have before you can do anything else.
And having worked with you and the others on the high school project, now I'm again looking at this document with a different perspective, and I'm realizing that so many of the decisions we've made at the school district level were based on information like this. You have to understand where your energy use is and where you're at. So yeah, now I can appreciate it a little bit more than I initially did. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's easy just to chase money for a given project, but you don't know if you're getting your best value for the taxpayers if you're just randomly selecting projects.
Yeah, we don't want to do that,
know?
right? Exactly.
Right. So one of the things, Ken, and I don't know if you can answer this, but I know, like, for instance, just speaking of the shovel-ready piece, I know you actually raised that when you sent out some information about some grants that were available, right? Does the city have anything that's shovel-ready? And I know that one of the things that Brad has spent and Elisa has spent a lot of time on is the streetlight issue, because that is a huge opportunity. But of course, what we've been told by, and as it stands right now, and Lisa, you'll have to hopefully correct me if I'm misstating this, but my understanding now is that what we've talked about doing with MG&E is pretty much avoiding the major corridors. I mean, like Broadway and Monona, which have the most lights on them, and having MG&E focus on the streetlights that are primarily in the residential areas, the other streets, and change them out as part of the regular maintenance schedule.
Yeah,
So
that's also my understanding. Like, I think MG&E is doing maintenance on a lot of the streetlights, I think in like 2023 to 2024.
right.
And it is, for whatever reason, and like Brad understands the details of this better than I do, but it is easier for them to switch the like interior street residential streetlights than it is to do, I think, like especially along Monona Drive where the streetlights have a more decorative look.
Right.
It's more complicated or requires different fixtures. So focusing on like the interior streets is the easier route.
Right. So if I remember correctly, to your point, Lisa, about Monona Drive, which still kind of baffles me that we didn't put LEDs in Monona Drive when we redid it, since that was fairly recently, but because they wanted to go decorative. But I think it was that MG&E said we had to pick one of their fixtures and they don't have a decorative light.
I believe that's correct.
Am I reading this report correctly? On page 25, it says LED lighting retrofit interior cost $3,630. Is that the cost to change one
Which
interior
document are you referencing,
light?
Chris?
The
No.
slipstream?
And which page were you seeing that on?
Well, it says, it's on page 25. It says community center energy savings. But then it says LED lighting retrofit interior. Are they just talking about all of the lights inside the community center?
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is that the community center, we're going to be doing a little bit of work on it, but we're anticipating that we're really hoping that once we get past the public safety building, that the community center would be next in terms of honestly building a new one, because it's 50 years old. And so we don't really feel like it's, as they say, it would be penny wise and pound foolish for us to be putting a lot of money into the community center. But I think, Lisa, do you remember how much per light MG&E was talking? They were talking about the light plus the labor, and the whole idea is that they're going up to do maintenance anyway, that changing the light at the time that they're doing the maintenance was the most cost-effective way, because if I remember correctly, the estimate to retrofit all of them was something like $300,000.
But by who?
By MG&E.
What if we didn't have MG&E do it?
We have to. I think we have to, Chris.
Yeah, I believe we have to, because they own the poles that the street lights are on.
Yeah.
So they're the ones who go in and do all of the maintenance. I don't have a total cost on the streetlight project, but it is like the labor costs decrease if we do it on MG&E's regular maintenance schedule, because it's not an additional trip for them. They can do it while they're already out there on their regular maintenance schedule.
Right, right. And then I think it was something that the ROI was something like, if I remember correctly, the ROI was anticipated to be something like 7 years.
Here it is. If you look at page 43 and 44, there's an analysis of the cost.
Yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, that 7-year payback period, I think, is accurate. That's what Brad had also come up with when he presented some of his like diet and exercise recommendations
Right.
way back when.
Right. Which is really, which is, I guess, part of my concern, obviously, all of our concerns is because there, I mean, 7 years seems like an awful long time for a light. Honestly.
The lifespan of a light?
No, it just seems like a 7-year ROI seems like
Oh.
a really long time. Because I
Yeah.
think even in the slipstream report, it said something like, that the payback period was less than that. Maybe it didn't, but I was thinking that it did.
6.8.
And when I've talked to people like Linda Lazewski, Lynn, about like Pepsi switching out its LED lights in the parking lots at PepsiCo, they said they got their return in a year,
Mhm.
What I don't remember is, and I can touch base with Brad about this, was if that 7-year ROI period was with the like general MG&E labor costs, or if that was like the reduced labor costs if we did it during the regular maintenance schedule.
Right.
So it's possible that it's shorter than that, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, just looking at that report, they have different payback periods for different lighting types, ranging
Right.
from 70 watts up to 400 watts. I don't know what all the various fixtures are that the city actually has and how many of each type they might have. If some of them pay back in 7 years and others pay back in 3, that's a big difference.
Right.
I think a lot of the higher wattage lights are the street lights, which are higher wattage in nature, from what I recall.
Right.
And we can replace streetlights. It's just that they may not be decorative. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. So my understanding is that they can change out the streetlights that are in the residential neighborhoods because they're
Yeah.
not decorative, but to do something like Monona Drive.
That's
which
what I
has
meant.
decorative,
Yeah.
They don't, MGD. And I know at one point I nudged Brad a little bit about, are you sure that we couldn't cut a deal with MGE because we have, among other things, we have a Monona resident who does commercial lighting all over the country for municipalities. And he thought he could get the equivalent lights, at a wholesale rate as opposed to paying whatever MG&E makes us pay, including decorative ones. Like he said, he could probably get us the decorative ones. But Brad said MG&E wouldn't buy that. So I'm not, again, I don't,
Mm. I wonder if there's something related to a liability of climbing up in the air and doing that sort of dangerous work, and if an injury were to happen, I wonder if there's something where only MGE staff are allowed to do that work.
Oh, I wasn't thinking that we
Oh.
would necessarily do the work, but that we could buy a
Buy the
separate
product, yeah.
buy the product ourselves at conceivably a lower rate than what MG&E would sell it
Yeah.
to us for, as a way to try to get.
Sure.
So, but without getting too much in the weeds around
Lighting.
what do we think the next steps are here in terms of creating this roadmap? If this is good baseline data, Ken, in order to get some things in the pipeline, you know, be able to advocate as a committee with the city, whether it's with the streetlights or with other things. What else do you know, what would you recommend?
Well, you alluded to the possibility of some grant funding in your earlier remarks. I don't know if everybody's aware, but the Wisconsin Public Service Commission has another round of these energy innovation grants on the
Mhm.
street right now. They released the call for proposals last week. I actually attended a webinar that the Public Service Commission gave earlier this week to get the details on that.
Mhm.
This is the same grant program that funded the solar project that's going on the high school.
Right.
So there are 3 tracks in that grant program this year. The first track will fund renewable energy and energy storage projects. The second track basically funds energy efficiency projects. So things like LED lighting would fit in that bin. And then the third track is a comprehensive energy planning track that, you know, if we wanted to pursue it, I think the maximum award in that track is $100,000, and you can basically pay staff people to work for the district and hire consultants. We could hire Slipstream to do a more detailed analysis if we wanted to, that sort of thing, and develop a, you know, a comprehensive plan that actually looked at the cost estimates for each of these projects and, you know, tried to figure out, you know, which ones could be executed the fastest, which ones were going to take more time, more planning. So I can tell you last year they received about 100 applications and they funded about 30 of them. So it's about a 30% success rate. And that was true in the previous round of funding as well. And the projects were sort of divided up into those 3 buckets roughly equally. So I think they had, you know, a dozen or so renewable energy projects, a dozen or so energy efficiency ones. And then I think last year they funded 7 or 8 of these planning grants.
Mhm.
So, you know, if either of those were things that the city wanted to pursue, we could go after it. The proposal is due in January. It's a pretty fast turnaround. They review them and you find out if you get the money by March, and then you have the rest of the year of 2022 to execute the project. So that would be a way, like if we wanted to expedite the LED lighting projects and get all the buildings up to LED lighting and then get as many street lights as we could converted to LED lighting instead of waiting till 2025 or whatever, we might be able to get it done next year if we were able to get a grant to help fund some of that. Or alternatively, we could, you know, think about applying for a planning grant and, you know, take a more methodical approach to our activities. You know, just looking at the Slipstream report, you know, it seemed like the biggest cost savings for the city would be to attack the lighting first. It looked like that was where we could save the most money on the energy bills.
Right.
So the interesting thing about those energy innovation grants is they're kind of structured particularly for what they call the mush markets, the municipalities, universities, schools, hospitals, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
You know, folks that aren't eligible for other federal tax credits because we don't pay tax, right?
Right.
So it's kind of a carve out for that market. They last year they had some matching requirements for some of those grant projects, and they've done away with the match requirement. So technically, you don't need to have a match anymore. Matching funds are just one of several criteria that help you know sort of bolster the competitiveness of your proposal if you have them. So you know if the district already had money allocated for LED lights and we were able to claim that as a match, it might help make the proposal more competitive. Trying to think if there's anything else, big takeaways that I got from that webinar. I don't know, do people have questions?
Do you have a sense, Ken, I'm assuming that you have a sense of the proposals that they have funded in the past?
Yeah, in fact, anybody can look at them. They're on the Public Service Commission's webpage. You can look at all the past projects that were funded.
Mhm.
I can tell you, last year in the renewable energy bucket, they were almost all solar projects, and then a couple that were solar with batteries. In the energy efficiency, it was mostly LED lights and HVAC type equipment that was funded in there.
Mhm.
I think there might have been somewhere they're doing like, pumps and stuff like this for, water treatment operations. So I didn't mention that manufacturers are also eligible for this. It's a way to support Wisconsin manufacturing. And then, the comprehensive planning, I think most of those went to school districts and maybe one or two to municipality to do a comprehensive energy plan. I'd have to go back and look. At the time that we were applying for the school, I was watching that docket real closely to see what was awarded and did a whole analysis of all the awards
Yeah,
to
I know.
see how we did. Monona did really well last year. The school district had the highest ranked proposal out of all of them that were funded. So that was kind of
Right.
cool to see.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that turnaround time is tight, and we were in this position last year. We were meeting every Saturday morning, even the Saturday after Christmas. We worked ourselves so hard to finish that grant before, we started it about, right now, November, we turned it in January. Holy moly, it's possible if we can find people in the community with grant writing experience. That's the key. You get about half a dozen people, you put them to work on this, and they just put their heads down and get us a bunch of money. I mean, that's
Can't we
what
just
do.
copy someone else's grant and change the data? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, how hard can it be?
it's-
That's a great idea.
it seems like, no, seriously, it really does seem like it doesn't have to be like a whole new novel,
Yeah.
It is sort of a prescribed proposal. I mean, it's got certain
Yeah.
sections that you have to fill out, and there's a form and a template and everything that you use. So it's not like you're writing a complete blank slate. They tell you what they're looking for and what the criteria are by which you'll be judged.
And are the questions the same? Are the sections the same?
I haven't looked closely enough at the
Okay.
application to say. That's a good question. Yeah, I just tuned into the webinar
Sure.
when was that? Wednesday. And I downloaded the documents, but I haven't had a chance to look through them all yet.
There may be an opportunity to go cherry pick a theme. Let's say it's LED retrofit,
Mhm.
and cherry pick the highest energy savings targets that we have from the slipstream recommendations, and just simplify and go after that. So you look at community center, city hall, LED retrofits, the higher load LED loads that are outlined, and that's it. I mean, you look at with those groups, I mean, those are in the tens of thousands of kilowatt hours. And if we're looking from a diet and exercise point of view to, take a swing at fewer items, but have a bigger impact, those stand out pretty clearly where, we're targeting things in under a 4-year payback that have high impact, that are low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
my
mean
only
that would seem to make sense to me. And if if we're able to take something that was going to happen in 2026 and move it forward to 2022 or whatever, that's a compelling grant narrative right there, right? Because it would have paid back for itself before you even initiated the project otherwise. So,
Yeah, so if you look at, so let's just put a straw man out there then for, the retrofit community center on page 25, looking at the LED lighting retrofit interior, there's 11,460 kilowatt hours targeted savings at the 3.3-year payback. Where was the other one? Library on the next page, 26, LED lighting retrofit, 30,920 kilowatt hour savings. Another big target. And then looking at,
Dan, which page are you looking at again? please?
I'm on 25 and 26.
Oh, okay.
There's the energy savings targets outlined. 25 is the community center. 26 is the library. So that there's line items there for the interior LED lighting retrofits.
Mhm.
And you can see the community center is 11,460 kilowatt hours. And then the library is 30,920. And you see both those payback periods are 3.3 years.
Mhm.
And then further down the line, I don't know kind of how it breaks out, but I think that's where somebody was pointing out, the different wattages. Oh yeah, on page 43.
Mm.
So if you look at the high load lighting, the 400 and 250 watt, just those two in themselves are 23,800 and 16,070 kilowatt hours. So, add it up, we've got, over 100,000 kilowatt hours with just those handful of items. And if some legwork's already been done to get a couple projects identified for that would be an easy ask to pull together, and then probably have a pretty substantial impact on reducing the energy requirements for the city, which is going to have a longer term impact, right, in terms of net present value next year and the years moving ahead. Of not only did we knock it out 100,000 for this year, but then every year thereafter, right? And that reduces the reach that we have to get to 100% renewable energy. Compounding interest, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, it all sounds great, Dan. I guess if I honestly, I'd have to pull out budgets. But I'm pretty confident that we've already tackled the library, have we not, with LED?
Yeah, I think so. I know there are like other non-lighting energy efficiency things that,
That stuff, right?
right, HVAC stuff that they're worried about at the library, but I think most of the lights in there are already LEDs.
Right. And we've also already tackled, I know this is one of those things, because we haven't had a grant writer, and also because, of staff time, that Brad's impression was that none of what Monona had was grant worthy.
I think Brad's other hesitation
Yeah,
was also like the matching requirement.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so
sure.
now that that's not, if that like requirement has been lifted, that changes things some. But yeah, I haven't looked super closely at what other projects are funded other than like the high school's project. And so I don't know how competitive we would be.
Right. So how about this, in the interest of time this evening, how about if we get there's a couple of grant writers that I'm thinking of almost immediately, because we've been writing a lot of grants for San Damiano right at the moment. And so I'm thinking if we could double back with Brad, and I also know that Brad has a gazillion bits of data on the LED streetlights, because it's something that he's been studying for a really long time. And the rest of the buildings around LED. And so I'm thinking, if we could get with Brad sooner rather than later, I could get, or Lisa could get with Brad sooner rather than later to say what's been done, what's still left to do. I know that the community center is definitely in need of it, and yet I know the city's hope is that we're going to be doing a new building in the next
Yeah.
8 or 9 years. And so, you know, that may not, but if we get an answer from Brad on that, and at the same time, then we'd be able to decide whether or not it's worth pursuing a grant, you know, rushing through. Do we have enough there to pursue a grant, and to pull it off essentially by do you know if it's due at the end of January or the beginning of January?
Let me see. I can look that up. I've
Thank you.
downloaded the spec sheet, and I can send out that information to people too.
Yeah, I could look it up too, but I just thought if you know off the top of your head.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's kind of, so it's like we're in this situation where we've got some buildings identified, but we also know that probably somewhere down the road, we're going to get new buildings. It's kind of hard to know. Do we just do it anyway?
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
It's kind of like, do we just do it anyway? And maybe we won't get those new buildings as soon as we think we will. You know, I don't know. It's hard to say.
right.
It's really hard to
It's
say.
due January 14th.
Okay.
Yeah. If the payback period is only a couple of years for some of these changes.
Yeah, I mean, it might be
Yeah.
worth it because,
Yeah.
I mean, we could easily have by the time it's actually completed, we could easily not have a new community center for 10 years.
Right.
You know, if we're talking about starting it in 8 or 9 years, by the time it's up and running, it's going to be a decade. So it would be worth it,
Right.
probably.
I think
we got plenty for it.
if we were going to do a grant proposal, I think it would make sense to just bundle all the LED lighting projects together into one big proposal. You know, if you're going to take the time to put the proposal together, rather than piecemeal it, you might as well try and get all of the projects done.
Right.
So instead of focusing on a building, focus on one aspect across all buildings.
That's right. We're going to
Yeah,
implement
yeah.
LED technology
Everywhere.
all across the municipality, right?
Yeah.
Across all our streets, across all our buildings, we're going to implement LEDs.
It's just more compelling. It's just some, I mean, it's just from a
It is.
marketing, it's more
a
from a
bit
marketing,
better
from a
accomplishment,
catchiness.
right?
Yeah, from a branding, from a, you know, getting people excited and jazzed up about it. Yeah, I like that.
You know, you want to be able to have an accomplishment at the
Yep.
end of the project and be able
Yep.
to say, we got rid of all our incandescent and fluorescent
Everywhere.
bulbs.
Yeah.
It's not so catchy to say, yeah, well, we replaced
did the library.
20% of
Yeah.
our, you know.
And
We
you
did
know,
about half of it and then decided to leave the other half for another time, you know.
But did
And
you,
Ken,
but did
that
you
really-
say, but did you say that it all had to be spent in 2022?
I think there is like a safe harboring provision where, you know, if you've incurred X amount of the project, you can extend that into the next fiscal year. Because we've had other projects that straddled, you know, across, especially with COVID, a lot of them got extensions, but you know, they're expecting you to have a contractor selected and work underway and, you know, goods procured.
So Ken, one of the lessons we learned that we, you know, with this high school project is that you shouldn't be afraid to go big. I mean, we
Yeah.
were rewarded for going big. I think when you propose something big, it catches people's attention and it works in your favor. So if we were, let's just say we were to like say, all right, every bulb in Monona, we're switching it out. Then we're gonna, I mean, you know, I am oversimplifying, I get that. But then we're talking about full-on project mode for the next year. I mean, there's gonna be, and it's not that we can't do it, but grant writing, RFP, contractor, I mean, this becomes sort of like our focus for the next year, which is not a bad focus. I'm just thinking like that's kind of where our work would go.
It's not a bad focus except for the project management piece of it, which is to say that
Yeah.
just getting the money is one thing.
Yep.
And the staff is already tapped out in terms of the projects that other projects that we've approved, and other things that we're doing around stormwater and all kinds of other
Mhm,
things. And
mhm.
so I'm just thinking, realistically, I mean, if part of that grant was to hire somebody else
I was
to
just gonna
oversee
say that.
all
To manage
Yeah.
it, yeah.
to manage it,
Mhm.
which maybe that's part of it. We bring another contract person on board to manage it for the length of switching it all out. But I can tell you right now that like the person who would normally manage it, which would be Brad, has no time to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I do think if we were gonna go for that, definitely including in the proposal money to hire a project manager, like whatever, in whatever capacity that looks like, would be important, especially if the money has to be spent within a certain amount of time, because
Well,
Yeah.
what about pooling with it, one or two other communities to share that resource and do,
Mm.
an even bigger deal than
So do Cottage Grove and Monona, is that what you mean, or do McFarland
Cottage
and
Grove,
Monona?
Monona, Fitchburg, Verona, whoever wants to come on board. It's a
Collaboration, that's
bigger
compelling,
contract, better negotiating power, and
that's bold.
more impact.
One of the catches with this funding source, this is old stimulus dollars from the ARRA Recovery Act of 2009.
Mhm.
That money originally went into a revolving loan fund. So these are the loans that got paid back. And they're taking that revolving loan fund and using it to fund these grants. But all those requirements from the 2009 Stimulus Act are still in place. So there's, when you go to do procurement and contracting, you have to adhere to like Davis-Bacon Prevailing Wage Act. You have to have Buy American provisions for all of your equipment. It has to be made in the US. So like, it's not a trivial job to manage the project and to develop the RFP and to select the contractors and all that kind of stuff. Because there are a lot of, hoops that you have to jump through and red tape because it is a federal grant award. So, having a staff person to work with Brad or assist Brad or, take this off Brad's plate, that wouldn't be a bad idea to include that in the project.
And at the school, we've got our business manager for the district who's doing a lot of heavy lifting, but we also have hired McKinstry, this kind of a project management organization, So the committee doesn't have to take on the managing of the technical aspects. We're just managing the softer, the community outreach and communication aspects of the project.
So I'm going to suggest that we can have a conversation with Brad about if we were to bundle all the LED for Monona. Because I think if we were serious about doing it this year, the notion of collaborating with all kinds of other municipalities at this late date to get everybody on board, whether it's McFarland or Cottage Grove or whatever, I mean, I just think that would be way too big of a lift. As it is, we're short on time. So, I mean, that's my thought. People can disagree with me, but I just, it's
Yeah, it's 2 months to get it done, yeah.
But even beyond that, there's a part of me that thinks we should have the conversation with Brad and with, not just with Brad, because it's, it's with the mayor, it's with Brian, it's with everybody, with Dan. And honestly, it could be that after that conversation, it even then it becomes too big of a lift for this year. I just want to be realistic about that. Even if we had a project manager, when you outsource something, it doesn't mean it goes away. It's just a different type of management, right? And I'm just anticipating that people would say, great if we knew about it 6 months ago, but we can't, we're up to our eyeballs with other you know, with other commitments already, and, we can't see, realistically, we can't see pulling this off this year. But,
You wouldn't necessarily have to outsource it. I mean, you could keep it in-house at the city and just create a new position or expand a position that exists and give them additional responsibility or something like that. You wouldn't have to outsource that work.
right, well, what I mean is contract the work as opposed to a city employee.
Yeah.
Finding the right person, somebody still has to manage that person or supervise that person to some degree.
But what if Brad were, his job title, project management, what if he, like, to build on what Ken is suggesting here, what would that look like? Brad would have to have some of his responsibilities shifted, right, in order to make room for the management of this project, yeah?
Right, but his projects already are part of the reason why Brad's no longer staffing this committee and Elisa is staffing this committee, is that he's already massive amounts of work around stormwater, especially, but all public work stuff, because there's a million public works projects that we do every year. And he has to oversee all and manage all of those projects.
I think the way to do it would be just to hire an assistant project manager as an LTE position for, 1 year or year and a half or something like that to implement the project. And they just work underneath Brad as an LTE.
Or under Dan, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
we-
how about if
Lisa to do it.
Lisa and I have a discussion with Brad and other folks at City Hall sooner rather than later, like pronto.
Yeah.
And if it around, if we were to do an all LED grant, what would that look like? What's left? And what would that look like? And, how quickly, realistically, how quickly could we pull the information that we need together to be able to write a grant for it? And we'll get back to this group as soon as we have that meeting.
Nancy, I wonder, actually, Ken, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I do think based on the timeline, this would have to be just like a Monona project. And actually, I don't know that they even do collaborative proposals with multiple entities, or that you can do subawards.
Mhm.
The project has to get submitted with an individual entity that has a DUNS number assigned to it and everything for accounting purposes. And I don't know that there's a mechanism to, split a project amongst multiple municipalities. And I just I discourage us from thinking about that idea and just keep it a Monona project, keep it simple. Otherwise, you'd have to hire an LTE and split the LTE between two districts, and they'd have to allocate their time between two different places. And that just sounds nightmarish,
Right, and alternatively, if the answer from that meeting that we have is, no way, can't get it together in time. An alternative would be to look at the comprehensive planning, right?
Right. And then you could hire an LTE to work on developing the plan too, and spearhead that effort,
That's right. And I think we could certainly argue that as a small community that has one person focusing, her time on sustainability, when we've made these big commitments and we're serious about those commitments in this community, but we literally are hamstrung by, the tax levy that we have and everything else. It's not like we have money sitting around to hire more people and we just haven't done it. We just can't. So I think we could make an argument, given our commitment and also given the progress that we've made. I mean, we do have a good reputation, among our peers, which is articulated in the Slipstream report, frankly, that we're ahead of a lot of communities in terms of having solar on our roofs and our, and, you know, a lot of the progress that we've made. So, and the data that we keep. And so, you know, we could certainly, same thing, you know, if it doesn't seem possible to do one, we could apply for that grant for the comprehensive planning.
So in either way, whether it's the LED or the comprehensive planning, it's still a grant that would need to be, we would still be grant writing.
Yes.
So, I hope I'm not swimming outside my lane, but would it, so if Lisa and Nancy met with Brad, would it be helpful at all for, I feel like I'm overstepping, would it be helpful at all for Ken to be there? Just
I knew
because
that's exactly what you were gonna say.
because Ken is just sort of like, Ken is just the one that seems to be like the one who knows the most about this whole, I don't know, it might be, yeah,
That'd be fantastic if Ken, if you thought you could fit it in, I'd love to include you in that meeting.
Yeah, if that's helpful, I'd be happy to join. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll definitely, if it takes a doodle poll or whatever it takes, we'll figure out a time where we can all do it. And we'll do it sooner rather than later. Huh?
I said I'm great at setting up doodle polls.
great at doodle.
I do it all the time.
I
Yeah.
have to say, speaking from the high school project, it has absolutely invigorated our committee like nothing else. And it gives you purpose, and the idea of going big. I think that's what you got to do in order to win a grant and get people's attention. And
Right.
it's cool.
Great. Great. Is that good for the roadmap for now? Okay.
I'll try and send a link to those documents from the Public Service Commission to everybody. I'll see if I can get that and email it to everybody while we're still going through the rest of the meeting here.
And
Thanks,
I'm just wondering, am I able to share my screen?
You are.
There, you got it. You got it.
What do I do now? What do I click next?
Let's see here.
There's
Well,
something that
why
I
don't
remember
you
you.
do search and type in EIGP, Energy Innovation Grant Program. Try that. See if it comes up.
No. Oh, Energy Innovation Grant. There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't
That's
have to. Yep.
So that's it. So previous rounds, that's what I was looking for here. So
Yep.
you can,
Yep. We'll look at that.
okay, so I'll stop sharing now.
Yep.
Okay.
Link in the chat, Teresa, and then everybody has it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thanks.
So, Department of Energy, solar permitting.
Yeah, Molly asked that we put that on the agenda again. It was something that Ken had just brought up, forwarded. So I don't know how much you know about it, Ken, but I can give the little spiel.
All I know is I got an email from a colleague of mine at the Department of Energy that told me that the secretary was looking to sign up like 100 municipalities in the first month or whatever to adopt the solar app program. That's all I know about it. That's
Okay.
well, I know some folks on a committee that might have interest in something like this, so I forwarded it along.
Yeah, it does seem like a really cool program. I talked to Doug, who's our city planner, and then our building inspector as well about it. So kind of wondering the same thing, like, is this a good fit for us? And as cool as it is, I feel like it's something for us to consider for the future, maybe, because we just don't have that many like requests for solar panels coming through. We've had about 10, I think, in the past year, which is great. Like, I didn't really know what number to expect, but it's great to know that we have that many coming through. But like, Monona doesn't have a separate solar permit. Like, it's just the regular building and then electrical permits. And we don't have so many of them. Like, I don't think that we see the same kind of backlog that bigger cities do. So that was what I got from our other staff who actually review those, that like the turnaround time just isn't very long for us. And maybe if we do see an increase in solar permits, which would be fantastic, maybe we can do that. But I think for now, it's just something that I will admire as other cities implement it.
Well, there's definitely benefit from learning from other people being the early adopters. There's no
Mhm.
question about that. So,
Yeah,
and then we can see what happens with the volume of installations in Monona.
yeah,
You know, there's a lot of incentive language in the new infrastructure bills that are
Yeah,
coming out of DC. So that may stimulate the market a bit. It'll be interesting to see.
yeah.
for sure. Okay. So should we move on to other new business?
Yeah.
So adding sustainability to staff reports and committee agendas, that's me. And you know, my experience frankly with the DEI, where we are now requesting every committee and every council meeting, every staff member and the staff generally to report out what they're doing around DEI in their departments, and what we're doing in our committees around DEI. The fact that it's on every agenda, our experience is really holding people accountable to moving on the issue. It doesn't mean that you can't say I didn't do anything this month or we didn't do anything this month. But I would say more often than not, that's not the case, because people know it's on the agenda and they're going to be asked, and I know that in talking to Brad, and I assume that Lisa agrees, that frankly, our departments are doing much more on the sustainability front than a lot of times they report out. I've talked before about the fact that Park and Rec, I saw Jake mowing with, some electric mowers, and I didn't even know we'd purchased them, and he was like, oh yeah, well, I had some money left over at the end of the year, so I bought a few. And, we didn't know that. So, and so I just, Brad has said that it would be really helpful to actually have the various departments report out what they've done, because it would be much easier to do the dashboard every year, to total up and to be able to report out to our public and the progress that various departments are making, big and small. And so I just think it would be helpful. This is, as far as I'm concerned, sustainability, DEI and sustainability, I can't think of any other, frankly, citywide commitments that we've made, big citywide commitments that we've made. And so it seems to me to have a resolution coming out of this, or a vote coming out of the sustainability committee, that we could craft a resolution around, that goes to the city council, that says that we would like to have sustainability added to department head reports and to committee discussions, so that we get an accurate accounting of the progress that we are making. And more accountability there would probably be a really helpful thing. So
100% agree. 100%. It's the necessary step toward normalizing it, institutionalizing it. Sustainability can't be something that you relegate to a little group of people off here over on the side. It needs to be embedded in your culture. So yeah, this is a very simple way to do that, or to start doing it.
okay, what do other people think?
I agree with that. I think it's helpful to see it, visually have access to that data, and people, I don't know how many people will look, but I think it's important.
I
Right.
love the idea. I love the idea of adding it to every agenda, as a line item, just like we do with DEI, like you said. Like,
Yep.
it holds people accountable. It forces them, like, ooh, I better think of something to say
Just
at the
think
next
about
meeting.
Keep it top of mind. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
that's all it is. It says behavioral change. It's
Right. Right.
I also
but
think
this
it's great
requires a
doing-
resolution.
I think what I would do is, I would probably speak to the mayor, but my inclination would be, yeah, to formalize it into a resolution, and I could draft the resolution for this group to approve at the next month's meeting, and we could start it as of January of 2022. Get it
Do you know if
passed by the
any
end of
other-
the year,
Yeah,
start it by January 2022, so we'd have a clean slate,
resolution.
clean fiscal year
Yep.
we'd be operating on.
Do you know if any other communities do that? Are we
I don't.
kind of, it's a great role model for others to
Yeah,
follow.
I don't. I mean, we could certainly check with other communities,
Yeah.
because I know like Brian goes to a lot of the meetings, as does
Yeah.
Lisa, so so we could certainly ask if other people do it, but
It's wonderful.
yeah, and it might be, again, to make it easier on people, we might it might be helpful for us to frame what we mean by sustainability,
Mhm.
which is to say that, I think people immediately go to energy, of course, and that's a big part of it, but obviously it could be what they're doing to reduce waste. It could be what they're doing to recycle when we're doing construction projects, or
Mhm.
when old buildings are coming down. As we did, we were able to brag when we did the riverfront that 89% or over 90% of the materials that came out of the riverfront were recycled. So, all right. So I'll I'll talk to the mayor, but I'll probably draft a resolution for the next month's meeting. And otherwise, if I don't have to draft a resolution, if the mayor says no, we'll just add it. Why don't we take a vote? Do I have a motion to one way or another make sure that this is becomes a city initiative, and then that way, if I can get a motion in a second, if I don't have to do a resolution, and the mayor says, and I let the mayor know that the sustainability committee voted, excuse me, that this should happen.
So Nancy, what is the ask? You're asking for a motion to draft a resolution? Is
I'm
that-
asking for a motion to make this recommendation to the mayor, and if it needs a resolution, I'll
Got
bring it back to this committee, and if it doesn't, she knows that this committee is behind it.
I move to
Excuse me.
I move that the Sustainability Committee meets, or representatives meet with the mayor to explore whether sustainability can be added to each committee department.
Right.
agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Sorry about that. I have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 6B, water usage community challenge. This was to be Molly and Sue. Sue, Molly's sick,
It's
so
just Sue.
Well, I don't know where Molly is on this at the moment, but I know when we mentioned it last time, it was in that longer list of many possible things that we could do in terms of outreach to the community, and getting more engagement in assisting with the process of doing the things we need to do. And the water usage community challenge I mentioned at the time was, or last meeting, was a pretty successful program at engaging community members several years ago. at a time when it was a lot harder for individuals than it is now with the new water meters and everything to determine their water usage precisely. I mean, it took a little more work, and yet about 100 families actually participated. So that was really exciting. And it was additionally exciting because the year that we did it, there was a huge drought and people's water usage actually went up almost universally from the prior year. And instead of discouraging people, that actually had them clamoring to try to do it again. So I think, if we were to try to move a program like this forward, either through the library or, something like that, it would be valuable to think about what might be most appropriate with the new technologies, or with focusing how to focus people's attention on the larger uses of water they had and how to reduce bigger amounts of it, or just things like that. What would be the best ways to structure this, or whether it's keeping the sewers clean, whatever it is, I think we need, it would be helpful to have a little bit more discussion on what would be the most beneficial type of targeting to use to make the situation most effective and maybe easiest or most accessible to people to try.
Mhm.
So, but that's all I can say at this point. I wasn't specifically engaged in the project last time, so I don't know structurally how it was all set up. But I think we can research that further if people are interested in that, and then figuring out how the city can or be or does not want to be, or whatever helpful in facilitating the project or evaluating the results or whatever. Go ahead, Teresa.
Teresa?
Sorry, I was on mute. So the water usage community challenge, I feel silly asking this, Sue, I'm sorry. Is this something that you're wanting discussion for a future endeavor, or is this something that you and Molly have already been working on? I feel so out of the loop, I'm sorry.
I haven't talked to Molly at all since the
Okay.
last meeting, so this is not in progress at the moment. It was just something of the larger list of items that we mentioned. It sounded exciting to her
Got it.
as something that we could do and
Got
would be meaningful and get a lot of people engaged because it was so successful in the prior
Can
times.
someone clarify for me? So recently, within the past year, were all households in Monona updated with a smart
Yes.
water usage device? So
Yes.
it feels to me like you could simply help citizens understand how to use the tool that they already have, right? Is that kind of where you're going with this?
That certainly could be part of it, but the idea is also to get, I think the idea of a competition kind of
Oh,
helps
sure.
look at
Yeah.
and get enthusiastic and talk
Absolutely.
about it. And
Yes.
definitely it is more engaging. So it's a number of those things. Yes, I think I totally agree, though. I think people need, might need some support looking at how to use that.
Right.
Because if I'm understanding the stuff that's on the screen, I haven't even used it.
Right.
So, but it looks like, I don't think by looking at what's on the screen, you would be able to tell, well, you would be able to tell, I think, over a period of time how much you're using, and then it
Right.
can be shorter periods or longer periods.
Yeah.
But if you actually wanted to look at, well, I took a shower today, I know I can time it 5 minutes. How long did that take? How much water did I use? Versus, okay, tomorrow I used it at 3. I think you'd have to go down to your meter and look. I don't honestly know how it works either, but I don't know if you can fine tune it that crisply that you
Yeah.
can look
I mean, it feels like the hard stuff is already done.
Yeah.
The software, the technology is already implemented, done. Now
Right.
it's the soft stuff, like getting people to use it, getting people to understand it, the educational aspect.
Mhm.
And it's all on your phone, but I have to say,
It's
as someone who
amazing,
had a
yeah.
water leak in their house,
Yeah, I mean, that's bigger.
It's very cool.
it didn't do me much good that it was on my phone because my phone didn't actually alert me. And so
Oh.
that's not how I found out that I had a leak. And it was a $500 water bill that month.
Whoops.
And I normally have like a tiny water bill. So, so I do think that that's just to say, I do think, frankly, Sue, I would say part of that, it might even be like, because I think when it was implemented, you got a little pamphlet when the guy came to
Right.
install it in your house,
That was it.
but there really hasn't been any follow-up from that. And it seems like doing some Eco Action Tuesdays or some PSAs or some other things on just how to
How to use this
know
tool.
how to use it and know how to
Yeah.
use the software and what you're looking at would probably be the place to start before you even get into a competition.
Right, I agree. Once people know how to use it, then let's have fun with it and like really
Okay.
compete. Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So some of that initially perhaps.
Or even like, who to call if you can't get the software to work. I know I had that trouble. So just there's so much education,
Right.
low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea, since I was just out in California in the middle of October on business in Mendocino County, as you all know, California is suffering has been suffering, although they've gotten rain since I was there.
Mhm.
But before I arrived, the drought was so bad that Fort Bragg, where I was, and Mendocino were both trucking in water
Ugh.
for people because wells were dry. And all the public places in town, or a very healthy percentage of the public places in town, had machines. Like we were at a retreat center that was kind of a nature center that had showers. It's kind of a camp-like setting, and it had showers and it had a machine with quarters sitting on the top of the machine, and so the camp actually paid for the shower, but the whole idea was that you put a quarter in to take a 5-minute shower, and that was it.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
it was to keep people from taking long showers. So
Right.
it's, it was a real eye opener for me. I couldn't imagine trucking in hundreds of thousands of gallons of water so that people could just attend to their basic needs.
And a question. So I've used ion water and gotten that set up and actually detected a leak and emailed me about it. Maybe part of it is in the outreach and education of letting people, you don't have to have the app. Here's how you can set it up, and see how many people we can get to use ion water and set up a leak detection piece that
Yeah.
helps people catch, like, because the one that we had, the toilet handle needed to get jiggled basically. And so we had 5 gallons an hour of water that was going through, and I got the alert, and I'm going all over the house looking for where it was. And my wife said, "Oh yeah, the toilet downstairs was running," and I just jiggled the handle and it fixed it.
Oh, no.
Like, if we could get, enough people in the community to use it and catch leaks, like what kind of an impact is that going to have? It's going to save people money. It's going to reduce pumping from the wells, like create awareness around, just water loss. That it isn't the most friendly process. Like, we had the issue with the account number wasn't working and didn't know who to call. Like, part of it might be just education, outreach, and pick one thing, like, something around a play on word with leak. help,
Right.
take out a leak of your life, and
Right.
maybe we can save some water for those Californians to boot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, Dan, I think that's a good point because, I had the reason why it didn't work in my house is because I honestly, the guy came to install the thing, but I didn't set it up. I didn't go through all the steps to including setting up the leak alert. So the only reason why I knew I had a leak was that my water softener started going off nonstop.
Mm.
And so I thought it was a broken water softener, and it wasn't. And the guy said, no, it's cycling through. Your water softener is cycling through because it's calling for water, and it's calling for water because you get a leak somewhere.
Ah,
I didn't hear it, I didn't see it. So, because it was a pipes under my slab. So,
mhm.
so anyway, I think that's a great idea. I think what we're saying, Susan, is that we think it's a great idea, but we need to start with education
First, okay.
first before we do a challenge.
Because
Yeah.
they're do a whole, thing on that, but it will only reach 20 people, and there might be additional ways we need to outreach
That's
to
right.
to
Right.
do that, but
Yep.
Community-wide education. Which other city department was involved in this software distribution? There's got to be someone we can partner with. Was it Public Works?
Yeah, well, it's and it's also the city finance director, but believe it or not, we just increased because utility billing is a big thing. It's a full-time position. So we just increased the water billing, which is paid for via the water rate utility rates, but we just increased it from part-time to full-time.
So I just
So-
think, like, wouldn't there be power in collaborating with, Public Works or somebody who was involved in the rollout of this software
Mhm.
and just saying, like, what training materials are already available?
Oh, for sure.
What's already out there? How can we help you to get the educational word out? Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's,
And once we-
and like distributing, especially if educational materials already exist, like that's something that's then easy for me to like spread. through
Upload it to the
media and whatnot,
website.
Make sure we get it in the city newsletter that
Yep.
goes through,
Right.
Yep.
that kind of stuff.
Put
I
it
think for me, the
online.
question is like, do those educational materials exist or not? Because creating them is definitely more of a time investment and like
And
certainly
not
like
necessary.
it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a question of like who does that.
And then you do some PSAs on VMO and you point people to the training materials and you get them out there. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Yep. Good point. Okay. So we can find out what materials already exist, Sue, and then, somewhere down the line, you and Molly or a group could focus on, what that educational program would look like. Okay.
all right, sounds good.
And we could certainly team up with Eco Action Tuesdays and library to do that. They're always a fantastic resource. So next up is number 7 is the DEI discussion items, and one of the things obviously that Molly brought up in the beginning before she left us was the fact that she had sent us all a document that Park and Rec has been working on related to burial mound maintenance in the city. So without getting into a big discussion about that, why don't you all just go ahead and take a look at what Park and Rec has put together, so that we're all familiar with what the city's doing there. Is there anything else on the DEI front to talk about tonight?
Well, I'll put something in the chat here. Not so much related to what this, do you mean related to what this committee is doing, Nancy?
Yeah, but that's fine. If it's something more general.
Yeah, so there was a story in the Herald Independent that just ran about a really wonderful initiative that I've been involved with called Monona Arc. It stands for anti-racism circles. It also stands for awareness, relationships, and commitments. And it's just a grassroots, citizen-driven initiative where we create a safe space where people can talk about very difficult, messy topics that are uncomfortable and icky, and grow awareness, learn about the history of Monona, as you know, our community has grappled with issues of racism in our history, learn where we've been and where we and envision where we might go, so that Monona is a place for everybody. So I would encourage anyone who might be interested in getting together with your neighbors and learning a little bit more and meeting some really wonderful people and growing your own knowledge around this
Did you
topic.
guys, wasn't there, has it already happened, the thing at the library?
Yeah, we've had 2 circles already, and circle number 3 and 4 are forming.
Oh, I thought that there was some sort of public presentation
Oh, I'm
about
sorry.
art at the
Yes,
library.
that's, sorry, yes. On the 18th of November at the library, there will be a presentation, a little bit more. People can come from 6:30 to 7:30. There's also going to be, and it's Zoom, a Zoom meeting. There'll be panelists, and to talk a little bit more about it. And if you scroll down, I can like even put this in the chat. Thank you for pulling that out, Nancy.
Sure, yeah, so I would say if you're, it's a terrific program. Unfortunately, elected officials aren't allowed to participate. But it was, it's modeled, it's, you know, it's kind of modeled after what used to be the Natural Step that
Yep.
happened here, you know, the program Natural Step that was a grassroots program here in Monona. So if you're interested, reach out to Teresa or she just send you the link.
Sign up.
From what I understand from the people that have participated, they've gotten a lot out of it. So I also just participated in a program from a UW professor who does research in this arena, and I can't even remember what it is. It is
It's like he's a researcher in the UW-Madison's like bias
yes.
research. So
staff
I
did as
also
well.
attended it.
What's
Yeah.
it? Bias
Yeah.
research.
So it's if you go to biashabit.com, it's William Cox at UW, and the staff went through it, and Brian sent us a link to it all, and it's all free. It's all research-based, where we get our biases, where they come from,
So
and
interesting.
basically how to be able to distinguish them as they're occurring and curb them in our lives. And I found it to be, it's like a 3-hour, totally free on the web, sit in front of your computer. But there are small group breakouts as it's happening. And I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So you did it too, Lisa?
Yeah, I was in the same session as you. Because I think, yeah, I know, because the staff who did it, I don't know, I'm not in the office all the time, and I think it was more for department heads. But yeah, I thought it was really helpful, and it was great that they then did that free session. I will say, I'm not sure that it's like always available. I know generally it's a paid training that people like contract for their offices and departments, whatnot. But they decided to offer this one free session. So fingers crossed they like do that again. And if they do, maybe people can participate. But yeah, I thought it was really informative, you know, hearing about a lot of similar like internal bias, like habit breaking, but then also hearing about all of the like sociological and psychological research that backs up all of those like
Yeah.
you know, methods for breaking habit. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Did all city employees take this training?
I think a
This-
lot of them
I
did.
said it? Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Kudos to us. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
the department heads are also doing like, I don't know how many weeks long it is, but like they're doing weekly sessions with Nehemiah,
Oh,
doing
that's
like
wonderful.
Nehemiah's justified anger course.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's good. It's good to see city staff doing those things.
Good. Monona's a great place. That's great. That's wonderful.
Anything else on the DEI front?
Well, I touched upon it really briefly in the last meeting, but I think one way we could tackle both DEI and sustainability as line items in an agenda is with zoning and the planning commission and changing our zoning so we could have smaller lots so that smaller workforce housing could be developed in Monona.
Nancy might
Amen.
know something about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just, that reminds me that, Chris, we do have a workforce development proposal that's coming in front of the council on Monday that was just passed through the plan commission.
Cool.
And it's not, it's actually where the Shell station is on Broadway, what's called the Chiefs property. So if you
Right
think
across
about-
from Menards
right
side.
across from Menards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a really high quality development, and it'll have a solar roof and a lot of sustainable features, and it's gonna have walking paths and a beautiful patio with grills and a playground, and it's townhomes and an apartment building.
Yeah, I'm talking about single family homes.
I know, and I
yeah.
completely agree with you, as you know, because I think the very first time we met, we talked about
Yeah.
cottage community.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
my latest thought is that, well, we don't have to discuss it, but I completely agree with you, and I think we need to find some other spots where that would work real, and I have a few other ideas, but we definitely need to find the spots because I think we're overdue to create some of that. And it totally works to our advantage as a community.
Yes.
From a tax standpoint, just to give you an idea of
Yes.
the kinds of things that Chris is talking about here. The development that Dale Ganser did, which is the sort of arts and crafts homes that are on Femrite, just as you go down the hill, just as you turn off of Monona Drive on Femrite. There's 6 homes on that lot. It's a single lot, and there's 6 homes, and they're much bigger actually than a lot of the cottages that I'm familiar with, the cottage communities I'm familiar with, but at the time that lot was split up, and it's in our comprehensive plan to do more of this. So at the time that lot was split up, it was a single lot, and it was generating about $9,000 a year in taxes with the single house that was on it, and it's now generating like $60,000 a year. So
That's awesome.
it's and they're tight on a single lot, but there's lots of ways to do that, and I think it's definitely worth continuing to pursue. So thank you for bringing it up again, Chris.
That is a really great thing to be reminded of, Chris. Yeah, thank you. You're reminding me of that conversation we've had. For the time being, though, I mean, here's a project we can get behind, and there's a deadline for us to back this project.
Right.
On Broadway, and it checks the same box that we're all trying to check. You know, it helps more people, you know, be part of this community.
Yep.
I'm also thinking
so-
if there's solar on the roof and people are driving by the belt line, they're going to be able to see those solar panels from the belt line, right? I mean, it's an incredibly high visible
Right.
solar project,
Right.
which is wonderful for I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's-
So, The last thing on the agenda before we adjourn is if there's any updates or future agenda items that we need to consider beyond what Chris just brought up, which I would be happy to return to at another meeting. Lisa, if you want to be sure to capture that. And then if there's anything else, and then also just talking about the meetings themselves. Do we want to get back together in person? How are people feeling about that?
I don't know.
No, it was, I figured I'd bring it
It's
back
so
up. because-
convenient to do this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
I-
speaking from my perspective, I just had to quarantine for 48 hours due to an exposure and wait on a test. So it came back negative, but like I had to rearrange a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff at school, so it's still not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
yeah.
we have, so like before, when we brought this up, I don't know, over the summer, I think, like we didn't have this whole fancy setup in the conference room to be able to do hybrid meetings, but we now have that option. So like,
Right.
if some people wanted to
Stay home.
come in person, they could, and some people could stay home. We have the flexibility.
In your experience, have hybrid meetings been, I mean, does it function in a smooth manner? Does everyone feel equally included?
I think, I mean, so the only hybrid meetings that I've been to, and Nancy can maybe speak to this better than I can, are the Plan Commission.
Yeah.
Which happen in the library, not in here, where there is not a fancy camera system.
Sure.
And I think Plan Commission seems to manage discussion fairly
Okay.
well.
Okay.
We do. I have to say that there was one night when I was quarantining. When I ran the meeting on Zoom and everybody else was over at the library in the room. And that was really hard because, you couldn't really, I mean, it was hard to see people or who was talking in the room. But otherwise the Plan Commission is also very structured. Which is to say that when a proposal is in front of us, like when there's a consideration of action, Doug always speaks first and gives a staff recommendation. And then I literally go around to every single individual committee member to speak in a very structured way. It's not kind of a discussion the way we do it here. We don't really have discussions. We have very specific items that we're dealing with. So, but it does work. And other committees, whether it's public safety, which I also serve on, or the ZBA, which I chair, it works fine.
Well,
So-
then people can do what they want in that case, right? I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously Elisa has to be at City Hall anyway. So,
I'll be here.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to get together in person, and not leave her, alone in the room,
Sure.
that's an option.
I have one very quick thing, and I know it's 9 minutes after the hour. I was approached this evening. Someone asked me if the Sustainability Committee was planning on doing anything in the spring surrounding that tree planting event that we needed to postpone because of COVID. He was very interested in helping if we need any help, talking about like, let's just get, talk about going big. He goes, let's just say, we had the year of the bicycle some time ago. Let's have the year of the tree. We have all these trees that are being taken down. Why not have the year of the tree? We'll have t-shirts, we'll plant 1,000 trees and, get like these little trees from the DNR for $1 a piece or whatever, and just do it. So I'm not interested in talking about the event right now. I know we have to go, but for new business, if we want to circle back to that, perhaps that event in 2022.
Right.
I think we have community volunteers.
So along the same lines, I'm going to pull something out that's similar if we did it like the year of a tree or whatever. And that is that, as a result of us looking at the redesign of South Winnequa, we're getting a lot of community feedback about, we shouldn't do any redesign of South Winnequa because we might have to take out a couple of trees.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke to that at the last city council meeting to say that, you know, we have a net zero program here in Monona. We always put extra money in the budget to replant when we have to take things, you know, like the ashes down. And the plan commission's also really good. But that if people were so concerned about trees, as we all are, that we should pass a tree ordinance.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
For people's private yards, because the reality is that more private trees are coming down in people's yards because people don't want to rake, or they don't like the cotton fuzzy on their car for the 2 weeks a year that the cottonwoods fuzz
Right.
out. Or, you know, they don't want the shade, you know, or they want a different kind of garden or whatever. And so there's a lot of, and I have multiple examples from other communities of tree ordinances that have been passed.
Yeah.
So we can put that on the agenda as well when we talk about it the next meeting, is whether or not that's something we want to advocate for.
Mhm.
You know, the way it generally works is that, you know, if somebody wants to take out a tree in their yard, if it's obviously, if it's diseased in some way, they can take out the tree in the yard. But if they want to take out a healthy tree, they have to get permission. You know, whether or not Monona's up for that, whether or not we're up for that is a discussion for the next meeting or two. Okay?
That also reminds me of another thing that I was approached by a citizen who was interested in whether or what kind of ordinances we have relating to fertilizing lawns and so on. And I know we have no fertilizer or whatever on the public parks and stuff, I think, or no, what is it, no spraying or herbicides, or I don't know what it is exactly, but anyway, also wondering whether some kind of I forgot the word. Ordinance, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Brain freeze would be valuable relating to that on public properties also, which would also lower the, you know, and I don't know how we would look at that or what it looks like now, or, you know, whether some kind of lower amount would be permitted, or, you know, because there's some people that certainly dump lots of stuff on their lawns a lot.
And as we look forward, you know, we shouldn't forget that, God willing, we will have a Memorial Day parade this year.
Yeah.
And so that's a great opportunity for us to insert ourselves to do like a lawnmower brigade.
Yes.
Electric lawnmower brigade.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with push mowers and electric mowers or whatever, to try to
That's excellent.
help some people wean off that habit. Right?
Yep.
So with that, because we're inching toward the hour, and I know Chris probably has to go into training, or no, I'm only kidding. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I
All right.
So Chris, good luck this
Yeah.
weekend.
Thank you.
Where's the best place to stand to cheer you on?
Oh, that's sweet. I need to review the course, but I think it kind of starts and ends at the Capitol,
Yeah,
What are you running in?
the
marathon.
Madison Marathon.
Oh, that's fantastic, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have
Yeah.
a good race. Hopefully you get good
Thank you.
weather.
I'm hoping it's cold.
Do you have any idea, like, just by virtue of your bib number or whatever, how many people have signed up for it?
I do not.
You don't.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. 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 Well, hopefully it'll be cold to keep you
Yes.
alert, but not so cold
Yeah.
as to freeze your, or slippery on the
Slippery would be bad, but
Yeah,
I like the cold.
yeah. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.
So thank you for
guys.
hanging out in the conference room for us all. Really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.